Just to forewarn you, we're having a little bit of trouble with the PowerPoint because of the lightning, so we'll hope it works. But you're going to have the opportunity this morning to see something extremely rare, and that is a young man under the age of 30 who's carrying cash in his pocket. I don't normally do that. This is a $10 bill. What's $10 worth to you? Now, for me, it's worth enough that if I saw it laying on the ground, I would be pretty excited to pick it up. But at the same time, it's not so much that I'm not afraid to spend $10 over the course of the week. You could use $10 to buy yourself a nice meal. I've probably spent at least $10 on coffee this week. But what I would like to show you through this presentation is what $10 is really worth to me. I'm going to set this right here and we're going to come back to it. This year, February 2024, Super Bowl 58 became the most watched Super Bowl game in U.S. history. Now, it was a dynamic rematch between the Kansas City Chiefs, the reigning champions, and the 49ers. But there was also a lot of viewership due to rumors that pop star Taylor Swift was dating tight end Travis Kelce. And these drove viewership numbers up to the largest in Super Bowl history. 123.4 million people watched that game. Just to put that into perspective, the most viewed broadcast in U.S. history was the Apollo 11 moon landing, and the numbers aren't exact, but somewhere between 125 and 150 million people watched that moon landing in 1969. I guarantee nobody over the age of 30 knows who this is. This young man's name is Jimmy Donaldson, better known as the YouTuber Mr. Beast. He is the largest YouTuber currently. His channel has 678 million views. Actually, I got that wrong. One video, the top video on his channel, has 678 million views. 4.5 times more people have watched this 25-minute video than watched someone land on the moon. He has 337 million subscribers, and if you add up the total numbers, 67 billion total views over his channel. In fact, just last month, November 2024, 3.13 billion people viewed his videos, or he got that many views. If you spread it out across the globe, 49% of the population of the globe watched one of his videos one time. This illustrates the potential reach of social media versus traditional media. It's not even in the same ballpark. Now, obviously, religious content is niche. A lot of Mr. Beast's viewership comes from the fact that he does lots of crazy things and he gives out a lot of money to people. But I want to show that this is what these kind of platforms are capable of. This is the greatest communication revolution since the printing press. And my question is, how can we harness this to save souls? That's what I want to know. Now, it's no mystery that Americans use social media, and they've been using it for 10 years in increasing numbers. Here I've got some data from Pew Research Center, which shows what we all know, and that is most American adults use YouTube and Facebook. That was no mystery, but what's interesting is when you start to break it down based on age demographic. And what we see when we begin to break it down is, while most adults over 30 years old use YouTube and Facebook. That's about it. Whereas young adults who are 30 or under are using not mainly Facebook, but all sorts of platforms you may not even heard of. Stuff like TikTok, Snapchat, Reddit. There's a wide age disparity between who is using what social media platforms. And so if you're someone who likes to use Facebook a lot, you may be surprised to find that most people under the age of 30 haven't opened up Facebook in months. They just don't use it. Now, these numbers get even more interesting when we start talking about people aged 13 to 17, the teenage generation. One thing you'll notice, across the board, everybody uses YouTube. Something like 90% of U.S. adults and teenagers use YouTube. But notice here that these young people, again, 63% use TikTok. 61% use Instagram. And so there is a wide disparity, and teenagers are gravitating to platforms that focus mostly on videos and on photos. This graph ought to catch your attention, because this is a poll about daily social media use among teens. Roughly 3/4 of teens use YouTube every day, and 6 out of 10 say they use TikTok every day. We're going to talk more about what these platforms are, but pay attention to this. Teenagers especially use social media every day, especially these highly visual platforms. We are missing out on a large portion of the population if we have no presence on these platforms. This is another statistic that I found very interesting, and it's one I can tell you is true, and that is Pew Research Center found nearly 2/3 of teens have made a new friend online through a social media platform. Now, I can give you a personal anecdote that I have personally witnessed, and that's one of my cousins who likes to play video games online. And he's a very outgoing, sociable kind of guy, and he gets to talking to people online, and he forms friendships with them. He, in fact, has friendships with people he's never met in person, but they get together on a weekly basis to play a game or just to chat through voice chat or text chat. Some of these people, he has been invited to be a groomsman in their wedding. And the first time they met in person was at rehearsal. Teens form friendships online, and it's not strange. It's a normal thing. My cousin has invited other friends that he's made online to move to Arkansas and live in his house, and some of them have come to church with him. And I know countless other young people who have done the same thing. You see, younger generations consider online relationships just as meaningful as ones that they develop in person. So I hope what you're seeing here is that the social fabric for young people has sort of shifted. In fact, you'll find a lot of young people feel more comfortable with online friendships than ones they form in person. If you don't think that affects how we share the gospel with these young people, you're mistaken. Now, I want to take a moment to just overview and explain some of these social media platforms, because if you're over the age of 30, the odds are you aren't familiar with most of them. And it's important to understand the differences between them if we're going to use them effectively to spread the gospel. Now, Facebook is the one that we're all familiar with, that many people use. But if you don't use Facebook, it's what we might call just a general socialization platform. You create a personal profile. You share information about yourself, like your birthday, where you're from, your job, You like to share pictures of daily life. It's a platform that you come to see things posted by your friends, to keep up with your family. And so most of the posts that you see on Facebook revolve around things going on in life. And that was the whole intention for its creation, was to be able to share photos with people who you care about, who live across the country, and they get to see what's going on in your life. What's interesting is many businesses are also present on Facebook, and it's sort of become the go-to platform for information about whether they're open or closed, the services that they offer. Many organizations treat their Facebook page like a second website. Now, Instagram is the one that I like the most, and it functions in many ways similar to Facebook in that the emphasis is on creating a personal profile. And you can see, this is my profile on the screen, and you can see exactly what I like. I like to go hiking, I like to go camping, and I like to take photographs of interesting things that I see. That's the biggest difference between Facebook and Instagram. Instagram has a heavy focus on photos and on videos. But at the same time, you're following your friends. It's a friend-oriented platform. You look for people that you know in real life, and you follow them, and you get to see all the pictures that they post. Here's another one that most people are familiar with, called Twitter. Now it's called X, but it was formerly known as Twitter. Twitter's a little bit different from these first two in that Twitter has more of an emphasis on following celebrities or people who influence you. And we all saw this demonstrated when Donald Trump created a Twitter account. If you want to know how Donald Trump, like him or hate him, how he won the presidency, it was through Twitter. Because whenever you looked at his Twitter account, you knew that it was him posting. Believe me, he didn't have a social media team curating his Twitter. He's the one writing that stuff. And that's how he won the presidency. Because people began to say something incredible when you think about it. Did you see what the president tweeted? People started to say that. That was the power of the platform Twitter, now rebranded as X. Now, as the platform X, it's going in an interesting direction. Since Elon Musk has purchased it, it now is beginning to take on more of a slant as a news platform, a place to go to read news that's unbiased. There's a stronger emphasis on it being against wokeism. And so it's sort of splitting. You see people who are leaving X because they want to hear that kind of thing, and there's people who are flocking to X because they're tired of the wokeism in this country. And so that's driving a recent change in who's using this platform. Now, this is the one that you've heard about and that all your kids and grandkids use, but maybe you don't know about, and that is TikTok. TikTok is an interesting development in this landscape. Its emphasis is on short-form video. Short-form video means a video simply that, say, is 30 seconds or less. And the way that young people use TikTok is the way that the older generations use cable television. When you're tired after a long day of work, what do? You go home, you kick back on the couch, and you turn on the TV. When millennials go home, they sit on the couch and they watch Netflix or YouTube. But when Gen Z comes home from work, they sit on the couch and they watch TikTok. They don't watch an hour-long program. They spend an hour watching 30-second little videos. If you don't understand that about TikTok, you won't get it. TikTok is an entertainment-focused platform. And it's caused some issues, if we're being honest, related to attention span and media literacy. When you start to chop up all these videos into little sections, people's attention spans drop, and we're seeing that across the board. Whether you think that's right or wrong, that's the reality of the situation. And that's something that we're going to have to deal with. But that's TikTok for you. Discord, you may have never heard of unless you like to play video games. Discord, I would describe as the next iteration of an AOL chat room. But it's one that you get to create and you get to set the parameters for. And if you want, it can be completely private, just you and your friends. And often young people will use this platform to have their own little space where they can chat through voice or text. They can share funny memes with each other, and they just can socialize. And that's very common these days. Snapchat is kind of the odd one out, but as best as I can tell, Snapchat is used mostly for personal messaging. But again, it's not like texting someone. There's an emphasis on photo and on video. You send photos and videos to each other that aren't saved. You just get to view them one time and then they disappear. And of course, people use that for all sorts of nefarious purposes. But there are a lot of young people who enjoy Snapchat because things aren't saved. It's more authentic. It's not like other platforms where you sort of have to curate how things appear on your profile so that you appear to be an interesting person for all those young ladies or those young men out there. Snapchat's more authentic. And in many cases, it's replaced text messaging as the go-to platform for personal messaging with young people. Now, there's so many more platforms that we could talk about. It may feel overwhelming. And it is overwhelming, even for someone like me. We haven't even talked about how often there is cross-posting between these platforms. There's all sorts of webs of connection you can't even imagine where things are shared between them. It may make you feel like you have no idea what's going on. You may feel like you need a translator. Yeah, I remember close to 10 years ago now when I went to visit Brother Jonathan in Cambodia. One of the first things that he handed me when I got there was this little booklet they had prepared about the culture and the language of Cambodia. And I was only going to be there for a month, but there were things that I needed to understand about this culture, else I would risk offending someone that I interacted with. And that was a helpful guide. And to an extent, I was able to learn a lot about Cambodian culture, but it was a drop in the bucket compared to what Brother Wani could do. Because Brother Wani was born and raised in Cambodia. He lived it. He breathed it. You can learn a lot of things about social media as an older person and even what it's about. But let me tell you, you will greatly benefit from having a translator. You know what a social media translator looks like? That's them, right there. The young men and women who are sitting in the pews in your congregation, there's your translator. And let me tell you, we would greatly benefit from harnessing their talents as we begin to explore how can we use social media to spread the gospel. Now, that's going to take a little bit of humility, right? Because you're going to have to perhaps go up to someone who's 18 years old. And let me tell you, I'm not that old, but it can be a struggle to talk to people who are 18 years old. But they have something they can do for the gospel. They live this and they breathe this in a way that you may not. And they can have valuable insight in helping you produce content that helps bring somebody to the gospel through social media. And we need to talk about how we can harness social media for that purpose. As Pew Research, all those graphs showed us, here in America, most people are online. Most people spend every day online. And if we miss out on that market, we are missing out on a large portion of the population who needs to hear the gospel. So I want to talk about how can we harness social media effectively. Now, I've got 3 points I want to talk about, and that is Facebook ads, YouTube videos, and Q&A live streams. We're going to talk about Facebook ads and spend the most time here because this is one thing Brother Jonathan asked me to talk about. We've been experimenting with Facebook ads over at the Green Oaks congregation this year, and this is one ad which we ran back in April for our gospel meeting with Brother Greg Branch. I would love to play the audio for you, but I don't think it's going to work. But you're welcome to go find this on our Facebook page afterward. Now you can see that was quite a short ad, and what it invited people to do was this. We break down the structure of the ad. It doesn't want to go forward. If we break down the structure of the ad, and I'm not going to be able to show it, I guess, but there are 3 parts to the ad. There is a hook, there is a expounding phase, and then there's a call to action. The first 3 seconds of that ad present a very strong hook to the person who's watching. In this case, the ad speaks to people who maybe are feeling lonely, feeling purposeless in life, and just ask them, do you feel like you don't have a purpose in this world? You're looking for something greater to be a part of. That's a strong hook, which many, many people are feeling, especially post-COVID. Now, the next part of that ad takes about 4 seconds to expound upon that, just to say something that iterates a little more, maybe rephrases the same thought in different words. Are you looking for a community of people who truly care about you? And then that ad ends with a strong call to action. We said, join us this week for our gospel meeting, renew your spirit, find what you've been looking for. Within 10 seconds, the ad is over. But you would be surprised how such a short ad can hook people's attention. And what I would say that separates these Facebook ads from maybe others that we've tried to run in the past is it is adapted specifically for this platform. It's very short, it's sweet to the point, and it catches people's attention. And this ad presents the gospel in terms that people can relate to on a real level. There are people out there who are desperate for community, people who feel isolated, people looking for those who actually care about them, not because they can get money out of them or anything like that, but because they truly care. When we ran this ad, we were amazed by the response that we got. We spent $350 on this ad over the course of 7 days, and 33 people messaged our Facebook page. 33 people spoke directly to me about their interest in what that ad said. And we paid about $10 per person. Now, think about that. Would you pay $10 to talk to someone about the gospel? I know that's not how it works. You can't walk up and hand people money and say, let me tell you about Jesus Christ. Except you can with a Facebook ad. Because you see, these people messaged us. They wanted to talk to me. And we got a wide variety of requests in that. Some people asked for money. Some people said, I'm hungry and I'm on the street and I need some help. Some people said, can you pray for me in this particular area? And then some people said, I'm interested in what you're talking about. I want to come to church tonight. We got the whole spread. I talked to every single one of them, and I extended an invitation to every single one of them. And that is the key that I want to emphasize here. It's not about numbers, it's about engagement. You can see here at the top, about 5,365 people were reached by this ad, which seems like low numbers compared to some others. But understand the quality of these interactions was much higher because they were people who were interested and responding. And that's what we value, right? The whole point is to take this from the digital to the personal in-person interaction. We want these folks to come to church and to study and to form a relationship with us in person. That's the power of these ads. From this ad right here, this one on the screen, 6 people came to our gospel meeting, 6 new visitors. 5 out of 6 came at least twice during the 5-day meeting. 1 was baptized, and 2 continue to assemble with us to this day. It works. And it works because it's adapted to the platform. I want to really emphasize that. It's adapted to the platform. We've got to be putting content on social media that people engage with. I'm not talking about changing the gospel message, but I am talking about changing how it's framed. And that's something that the Apostle Paul did, didn't he? When he went and preached in the synagogue, his sermon sounded a lot different than the one he gave at the Areopagus. When he preached to Hebrews, he was speaking to people who had a respect for God and for the Old Testament scriptures, and that became his angle. When he was talking to pagans, he approached from the angle of their philosophers and showing that some things that they said about God were correct. But I'm going to tell you what you don't understand about him. We've got to make sure that we are adapting our content for the platform. So a 10-second Facebook ad that's a video shot in portrait may seem strange to you, but it's what people engage with on the platform. The numbers don't lie. You know, as I thought about this, I came across a quote from Charles Spurgeon that struck my attention. This is from his little article on street preaching. How does he go out and preach to people on the street versus in the pulpit? He said this: "A man must keep himself alive and use many illustrations and anecdotes. To dwell long on a point will never do. Reasoning must be brief, clear, and soon done with. The discourse must not be labored or involved. Each point must be complete in itself. The chain of thought must be taken to pieces, and each link melted down and turned into bullets. Come to the point all at once, and come there with all your might." Teaching on social media is much the same way. Attention spans are shorter. We've got to come to the point, and we've got to come forcefully in a way that hooks people's attention and speaks to problems that they can relate to. When you walk up to someone and say, you know, you want to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ, don't you know you need to come be a part of the New Testament church and worship like the first century Christians did? You might as well be speaking a foreign language to people. But when you frame it this way, when you say, do you see the problems that are present in your denomination? Jesus said, every plant my heavenly Father has not planted will be uprooted. Come to church with us this Sunday and see what the Lord's church is supposed to look like. People understand that. I want to emphasize that. The content has to fit the medium. So, we've had a great success with Facebook ads, and I would love to talk to you more about how to create them and how to run those sorts of campaigns, because it's very cost effective and it's something that any congregation can do. And the best part is it runs in the background while you're doing other stuff. I love efficiency. But I want to talk now about the YouTube platform. Now remember those statistics we saw last time from Pew Research. 90% of adults in America use YouTube, and most of them use it every day. This is a massive platform for media consumption. And one thing that I have been working with, along with Chris Jones and Aaron Newman, is on this Faith Uncovered YouTube channel. I haven't created any videos. I've done a little bit of editing. I've mostly been a sounding board to bounce ideas off of. But I plan to get more involved next year. All of us would like to devote more time to this channel. And here's why. We've put out about 2 months worth of creating content. We've put out a lot of videos which are rough around the edges. You're welcome to go watch them, and you'll see what we mean. We're perhaps our biggest critics, and we've made mistakes, and we would certainly do things differently with this video, with these videos going forward. But on this piddly little channel where we have had only half an idea of what we're doing, 119,482 people have viewed these videos, and that's over the span of a couple months. That's incredible. And that's just a drop in the bucket of what it's capable of. Chris told you a little bit about the most successful video, which is one of those short videos, I think it's no more than a minute long, AI generated, talking about what's the best Bible translation. 46,000 views. I actually had to update the numbers last night because it got 1,000 more from last week when I wrote it down. You know what he didn't tell you is that video has 866 comments. 866 people stopped and took the time to write something about what they thought about that video. You'll find most of them are King James only people, and that's a whole other discussion. But the point is, 866 people, 866 opportunities to have a conversation with somebody about the gospel. Let me tell you why this video was so engaging. It's so successful, one, because it speaks on a topic people are interested in. It's relevant. People want to know something. What Bible translation should I use? What a great avenue to talk about that subject. As far as the video itself, it's not too fast or too slow. It's paced very well where people can follow along. But really, the fact that it resonates, the fact that it hits on a question people are asking, that's what made it do well. We have another video called 10 church things that are actually not in the Bible. This one's longer. It's about 8 minutes long. And it has about 5,200 views and 151 comments. That's pretty good for a video that's 8 minutes long. A lot of people engaged with that. In fact, Bible studies over Zoom came out of that video. It asked a question people were wondering about and answered it in a way that they could understand. And that's why it succeeded. These videos on YouTube are quite amazing. You can see all the stats. You can see who's watching, where they're from, what point they lost interest. And all this statistical information is extremely valuable. It helps us understand how can we frame the gospel in a way that these folks understand. Again, I want to emphasize, this is a little over 2 months worth of work on this channel. Thousands of people commented and watched, and 9 Bible studies over Zoom came out of it. What could we do if we spent a whole year focusing more on this kind of outreach? There's a third kind of outreach I want to talk about briefly, and briefly only because we've tried it one time, but there's great potential here too. And that is one thing Brother Joe Norton and I did, was we sat down on camera and we live streamed on Facebook through the Green Oaks Church of Christ Facebook page, answering Bible questions. We invited people to send in Bible questions, and then we picked from that list, and we sat down on camera, and we simply answered the questions. And you can see this is very casual. It's laid back. I'm drinking a cup of coffee. We're just a younger man and an older man sitting down and having a discussion about what the Bible says on questions people are asking about. We had a whole slew of problems with this thing. It took 10 minutes to get the camera and the audio working right. The lighting is terrible. I didn't have a haircut, so I look kind of dorky. There's all sorts of things that we didn't do perfectly, but somewhere around 30 people watched the whole 45-minute thing. What a great opportunity this would be to outreach. It got me thinking of that radio program that Brother Richard, Brother Allen used to have back in West Virginia, where people would call in and ask Bible questions and they'd answer them on the air. This is the modern version of that. And that's something anybody could do. You're in luck because these days, the more informal the live stream, the better. Most people are not interested in watching a guy stand up with a suit and tie and preach a sermon on YouTube. I mean, think about it. When you try to watch a concert on YouTube, it's so much different from being there in person. Just like how a sermon that may stir us in person when we watch on YouTube loses all that energy and that engagement. But what people are watching all the time is genuine, authentic people who sit down and talk about subjects that they're interested in on live stream. We got a lot of men who could do that here in this assembly today. These are just a few ideas, and there's so many more that we could talk about. There are ideas that I, as a 27-year-old, have not thought about that an 18 or a 19-year-old probably has that we could be using. But here's my point. Why aren't we taking the time to learn how to use these tools effectively? Why aren't we spending the money and the resources to learn how to do this? If Paul had been alive when the printing press was invented, you can bet he would have been printing a lot of copies of the book of Philippians. He would have been ecstatic to have a tool that allowed him to disseminate the truth of the gospel farther than it ever had before. Now, I can only imagine how Paul might have responded if he had had the opportunity to live stream on Facebook across the world and answer people's Bible questions. What an unprecedented opportunity. And it's one that's extremely cost-effective too. Yes, there's a lot of front-loading on the cost. You've got to buy a camera, audio equipment, maybe spend some on software. But once you have that, once you have people who are skilled in creating this kind of thing, you have much greater freedom over how you can spread it around. You don't have to sign a contract to share your media. You can post it for free on platforms that reach across the globe. What's $10 worth to you? Or even $20? Isn't it worth any cost to learn how to use a new tool that we can take and use to effectively spread the gospel? I'm going to stop right there.